And for those of you who need it, closed captioning is available. If you click on the closed caption icon at the bottom of your Zoom window, you can choose to have subtitles displayed there for you. And if you could just make sure that you stay muted when the panelists are speaking, we will go ahead and address questions that you might have if you put them in the chat. And then if we need you to expand on that, we'll ask you to unmute yourself at that point. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Judy Littlejohn. Thanks for joining us today, Judy, and all the panelists. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. So my name's Judy Littlejohn, and I'm the instructional designer and faculty developer at SUNY Genesee Community College in Batavia. And we've been doing HyFlex for, this is probably the third semester of what I would call real HyFlex, ensuring that all the courses meet the quality standards that we have set forth. And so last fall we had about 27 courses that were truly HyFlex. And then in the spring we had about the same number, but then when everything changed and students lost the ability to choose to come into the classroom, those courses became like different remote courses. They weren't truly HyFlex. And for this current semester, we've only had one that's truly HyFlex. We have English as a second language course for our international students, so they could choose to come into the room. But hopefully we'll get back on track next fall. And and I'm the only instructional designer, so I work with all the faculty on all those things. And I'm going to be asking some questions, and all of us will take turns answering, but I'm going to have each person introduce themselves individually first. So maybe Monica, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I'm Monica Popagni. I'm from Jefferson Community College, the director of instructional technology, and we are the newbies. We're in the infancy stage. We have some equipment on order, and hopefully it'll come in sometime in the next 6 months to develop a couple of rooms, and we are working on how we provide faculty support, training, development. So I'm here to learn more than probably participate, but I'm happy to talk about whatever.
Okay. Tonka?
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Yokolova. I'm the Director of Center for Learning Design, Innovation, and Online Instruction at SUNY Canton. We have been doing Flex, we call it Flex on our campus, Flex courses. We have been doing Flex for a while. There was some little bit of a confusion at the beginning, in the beginning stages because of the definition. Flex is so new that defining it was very crucial for us. And so I think we are past that point. We have everything defined and we know what we're doing. So now we are at a good stage right now, I believe. We do have our faculty are quite independent. However, we do, of course, support the Flex course design and Flex teaching in the center. We have instructional designers as well as instructional technologists. And also, in addition to our center, we have a classroom technician, I think, or classroom technology technician. No, classroom technician, I think is his title. I think you met him on Wednesday, I want to say. And he is the person dedicated to helping faculty with the technology. So we do have pretty robust support when it comes to course design, when it comes to technology as well. So we kind of try to attack it from different angles. That's how we are. That's the process at Canton.
Thanks. Jeff, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Judy. My name is Jeff Dugan. I am an instructional designer at Finger Lakes Community College. We're kind of in between the two. We have had great synchronous classrooms. So we've had some technology for a while now that has allowed students to engage in synchronous coursework remotely from remote centers. And just of last fall, we decided to take that a step further with the technology and create a synchronous classroom that was designed in our Victor Lab for cybersecurity program. And this synchronous classroom actually ended up becoming our HyFlex classroom. So it allowed for students to engage completely remotely, not in one of our campus or extension centers. And that was developed in tandem with just one of our just star instructors that we really wanted to kind of elevate his status and get him access to more students that could not participate in normal class time. So that's why we adapted HyFlex for that course and for all of that coursework. What's really nice about the kind of technology of that room is it allows for things like very close-ups on shots that allow you to see kind of a server switch, so they can really get into the nitty-gritty of the networking. And so again, it was really an effort of pairing technology with the instructor. Though there have been some kind of conversations around how then the course is designed, and so we've had some really good discussion around that. We thought that cybersecurity was the perfect group to test this with, because students are normally a little more savvy and the instructors are a little more savvy as it comes to technology. But again, it all comes down to design, right? That's why we're all here and what the work we do. So all the tools are in place, and now we're just fine tuning that since the fall.
Okay, thanks. So I have 4 basic questions. A couple of them are in 2 parts, but so I'll just read off the question. We can take turns answering, and if people have follow-up questions, please type them in the chat. So the first question is, how do you and the instructional designers on your campus support faculty teaching HyFlex courses, or how do you support HyFlex in general?
I'll be happy to start if that's okay. We do have several layers of support. First, we do have training in place. Training is not specifically for Flex course design, but it's very specific for course design with any online elements. So Flex, of course, falls into that. So we do have training that can be fully online. We also ran a couple live sessions of it. So whoever needed for it to be live, we had that option for them. So that is more of a group effort. And the rest of our efforts are very personalized, because Flex is so new and it is quite difficult to comprehend fully. We try to be as personalized as possible. So whoever is teaching from our faculty is teaching or thinking about teaching in Flex, we definitely want to have one-on-one conversations with their faculty, because in the first session, we tried to combine technology with pedagogy a little bit, and we are asking those questions that faculty will need to ask. How do you think you're going to be able to first of all, are you going to be able to navigate the technology? Of course you are, but here's how, right? So we combine the technology and pedagogy in the first session. Some course design questions are about how much online are you going to go into, because you will have some students who are on campus. So how confident are you that your students who are on campus will be okay with maybe online discussions, if that is where you're trying to go with. Also, some course design elements that they need to think about before they get into the process. For example, there is always good to chunk material, just something to get them thinking about how to proceed. My number one advice for our faculty when we meet with them one-on-one is always make sure you're teaching to the objectives. You're not teaching to the textbook, because if you get bogged down in teaching to the textbook, it will be very difficult for you to cross over that modality, right? Because you are teaching possibly in 3 modalities. You are teaching in online, you are teaching synchronously and asynchronously, and you're teaching in person. So if you're bogged down into teaching to the textbook, that transition between modalities might not be that easy for you. So that's where I'm trying to pull the faculty to start thinking about teaching to the objectives rather than textbook. That's not me, that's my dog. That's my dog.
Tonka, there's a real quick question for you in the chat. It's how many faculty teach in the Flex mode at Canton?
Well, that is a question I don't have answer to because of what is happening these days, and people are kind of moving between modalities. But before this happened, we had, I want to say, up to 15 faculty. We are quite a small college, and I think 15 would be a good estimate. Of course, it changes, and now we have more faculty teaching in Flex because of the situation and all that. But yeah, definitely the best way to approach this is personalized one-on-one with instructional designer, because every course is different, every instructor is different, every instructor has challenges that are different from anybody else. So that is what is definitely paying off for us, to have that personalized one-on-one.
Thanks. Monica or Jeff, would either of you care to chime in?
I can chime in. I have more questions than I have answers. We have one ID, and then I as director back that person. We're looking to do combined, some kind of combined training, which includes pedagogy and the use of the technology, because you have to think about how you're going to use it, or if you can use it, depending on what your how you teach, what your content is, what the capabilities of the room are. We are thinking of doing something similar to what we do for our online process. They go through we'll start, for example, in spring, early to mid spring, for development for a fall class, and then bringing in some of the pieces that we do with the people who teach synchronously distance learning classes. So bring in some of that, but get the practice and the experiences while they're developing, because we heard very loud and clear on yesterday that you got to have the course in place, or most of it in place, and then think about, so we will probably do a cohort. I know I'm talking, we're going to probably pilot and then add, but we'll probably do a cohort with, treating it like we do with the online development. So there'll be some one-on-one and some group sessions, depending on who and how we move forward. But the first thing is to get the equipment in, but we want it to be a integrated approach as well.
Yeah, that's kind of how we look at it. So we have I ensure that the faculty develop their full online course first, and then they have to create a table, or a chart of how the learning outcomes are being met. So they have to list out what exactly is going to happen in the room every class session, so that the students can make a fully informed decision about how they want to attend that week or that time. And we encouraged faculty, if they're preparing this semester to be HyFlex, to try to visit the room or see what's going on while an existing HyFlex course is in session. Of course, that's really tough right now, but that's the ideal plan. And we get the people together, periodically, maybe 3 times a semester, just to come in a room, and everybody who's interested in HyFlex, who's doing it now, or who wants to know more about it, can just have conversations. And we give an overview, and then they split into little groups about their interests. Like, if you're most worried about the technology, then you guys talk together. Or if you're most worried about how to plan that schedule, then we'll have that group talk together. And hoping to get them so they just do that, and I don't have to facilitate that discussion, because I do teach online, but I don't teach HyFlex. So, they know I'm always available to help them out, but they're better off, I think, talking to other faculty that are doing it than to me, because I just don't think it would work for me. I'm not interested in trying to do all that at once personally. But so that's kind of how we run it at GCC. But Jeff, did you want to say anything on this topic, or?
For me, it's a little bit the opposite of Tonka. As we're getting started, it takes a village to get this thing off the ground. It takes a lot of IT support. In fact, this may be troublesome to people now, given where we are, but we had 8 or 9 people shoved into a very tiny room talking about this in the fall. You know, just the idea that we couldn't do that now. But this idea that, you know, we're setting up what we're so used to now of this, you know, Zoom, WebEx, synchronous model as a teaching platform. But we had to make sure that it was established for two-way communication, and that everybody could see everybody and have the right conversation that makes for a good, you know, face-to-face course experience. So I agree that the foundation is there in the online course. That's how we set this up, and it had to be that way. But it's just as the online, like a traditional online asynchronous course looks at critically course structure and user experience, I think HyFlex really looks at instructor presence as an important factor. You have to be pre-planned. You can be off the cuff and take your time, but you have to be masterful with the technology to do that. So to get that confidence and get that understanding, you have to really be well supported by either instructional designers or IT or a combination of both, or have that intrinsic knowledge just to be able to get through it, so that you can present in a way that is useful to a wide array of students. And I think our keynote speaker did such a good job talking about how UDL and HyFlex are so closely related, because it is an additive of online learning, of asynchronous online learning. And it is the next step of that. And I think that's how instructional designers look at it differently than faculty. Faculty look at it as, I'm just expanding my face-to-face course. We look at it as the next step of asynchronous online learning. And we're somewhere in the middle. That's most of my conversations I've been with the faculty member I've worked with.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I agree completely with that. So we'll move on to the second question. It's a two-parter. So how has the implementation of HyFlex on your campus impacted your day-to-day job? And are you able to manage everything, or has your institution had to hire more ID or technical help?
We have recently hired a new ID, but it was not because of demands on Flex. It was just generally ID work. So it is coincidental that we have one new ID. However, we did hire a classroom technician. Classroom technician is housed in IT department, and he takes care of everything related to classroom broadcasting. So that was a specific hire for HyFlex, and we've had him for 2 years, maybe, or so, 2-3 years. Yeah, so that was definitely an investment that the college put into the process, and it was a very smart investment, because that's his major job, is to take care of the technology. And we have 2 different platforms that instructors can choose from, and he supports both of them. So it was definitely a good move to hire that. And when it comes to instructional design, it definitely is an additional element in our work, but it is not anything that we would need to have another person, or just a person that is scheduled just to work with Flex instructors. That's not it. A lot of ID work comes at the beginning stages, when we're trying to discuss with the instructor what HyFlex actually is, how to design it. Then we are also available during the design process as a sounding board. If something needs to be discussed, well, how am I going to do that in person, and how am I going to move that online, just for it to make sense. So we are available for consultations, but it's not 100% hand-holding, I guess, for lack of a better word right now. It's not 100% one-on-one. We are not that tied to course development in that kind of way. So yes, it is more work, but it is not anything that we would need another new person. Technology person that was hired was definitely a good move. And I do recommend, if you're thinking between hiring somebody specifically for it or not, I would definitely advocate for yes, to hire somebody for tech. If you're able to, of course.
So here at GCC, we have been firing people left and right, retrenching. So we have the pretty much the opposite, and we did lose a couple of IT folks, and my cat just did that thing where they get all soggy. Like, but the impact on my day-to-day job has been a lot more of like just longer conversations and a lot more training sessions on what is active learning, what does that look like, what is active learning asynchronously, how do you know that we have to disabuse faculty of this notion that just making a video of you talking for 3 hours is going to give your asynchronous students an equivalent learning experience. So that's just been a huge that's using a lot of my time to make sure they fully understand what the students have to have the opportunity to do. That and the regular and substantive communication, but we would be doing with online people anyway, just to ensure that the understandings of the expectations are clear. But once they get started, I think the faculty really seem to enjoy it, and so far it's going pretty well. But that's Monica or Jeff, do you want to reply to any of that?
Well, we've worked through retrenchments and layoffs as well. The odds of us getting an additional person at this point are very, very slim. If I were to be able to, I would actually look for a second ID. One, we're IT as well as instructional design and supportive online, and in support of instructional technology. But two, we could do a little more with everything that's going on, because we've been, like everyone else, inundated with providing support because everything went remote. I am working, because we are in the middle of a Title III grant. I'm working with our project manager to see about actually, as we develop this process, because we're so new to it, and we do the first couple of cohorts in training, backfilling our ID with some SUNY online instructional design support and or Blackboard support on the, for our experienced existing faculty, so we can have a little more time to develop this and work with it because it's so new to the campus. I'm hoping that will work out, so we can get a little more time to work on this, but I don't see any new positions coming our way, at least not for a couple of years.
I'm in the same boat. What's one more meeting, right? We all have time for another meeting. No, I think that it's tricky because at Finger Lakes we've developed and kind of cultivated this sense that the instructors are very much, we are at the beck and call and ready to serve. And when pursuing new avenues like this, it's important that they do feel comfortable behind the wheel and feel in charge of these types of things. And we are going to have a completely different discussion now when it comes to HyFlex than we ever have because of the situation we're in. The cat's out of the bag for being able to do this. Now, I agree, and I'm seeing in chat that students may also have difficulty going to a HyFlex environment. But that consideration is maybe not the best option. I think that HyFlex at the end of the day is about options for students and developing. Again, I listened to the keynote, and I just recently, so it's all fresh in my mind. But this idea that you build in tandem pathways with each other and reuse as much as you can, so that the first time you run a HyFlex situation, so different than you run a first time for an online course. It's a lot of work up front. The development is hard, and it takes time and takes effort to plan, but subsequent runs of it become a lot easier because you've had that test, you've had that student feedback. So, the pain spot is, I'm sorry, Monica, right where you are at the very beginning, and it gets easier over time. I feel like I say that the most to my developing faculty is it's hard right now, but it will be easier in the long run. And we're all have a different universal standpoint now, or a touchstone to go back to. Remember in March, remember, and some people say, remember in 2020 when we move past this, hopefully, we all did it, and it wasn't easy, but there's some students that were successful in that, and we want to keep those students being successful. And they were just happy in their basement like me with a screen behind them talking to whoever they feel comfortable with. So it's yeah, exactly, Dean. We're at a new influx point. 2000 was the evolution of how we look at online learning, and now that we have the technology to be able to meet communicate with you fairly simply with a good internet connection, we're at a different point now, and I think it's time for the traditional online learning to maybe change a little bit. So the actual question was, do we think we'll have more people? No, but I think once we get past that first round of challenges, it becomes a lot easier. So I think that's just something to keep in mind as you're developing them.
And to echo exactly what my co-panelists say, I do 100% agree. And a lot of instructional design work that we do with faculty, especially with new faculty new to Flex teaching, is, I call it counseling, because it's a lot of support, like, we'll get through it. Don't you worry, we'll get through it. And you have me, and you have Ed, and you have 5 other people here in our office. So a lot of it is just courage giving task that we are here to do. And faculty need to have the sense of the cocoon around them, cocoon of support around them. And once that is in place, it's much easier for them to go and fly. So that is definitely a huge part of my job, is just counseling people to not fall off the ledge, because a lot of it is very new and very strange and very daunting. But it's just like every other instructional design work. You have to take it one day at a time, piece by piece, and before you know it, you'll get there. And I do also, when we have new instructor to Flex, I also want to recommend to go very easy at the beginning. So don't try to save the world in your first course, because it's not going to happen. And that kind of, I think that applies to everything in life. Just try easy, do as simple activities, as simple assessments, as simple everything as you are able to. And once you run it the first time, first maybe twice, you will already know your comfort level. You will already know where you can push a little bit more. You already know what more creative stuff you can do. So I think number one is to give faculty support to make sure they understand they have support. And number two is always start simple. And once you get going, I was kind of looking at where our support is to prepare for this panel today, and I realized that we do not get many phone calls once the person gets going. Everything, all the anxiety, all the support is at the beginning. Once the beginning is done and they're in week 2 of their course and they're in their groove, there's not much support needed. So a lot of support is hand-holding at the beginning, course design, and the counseling part. Absolutely.
Thanks. So the next question kind of builds right off of this previous one. How do you train faculty for HyFlex on your campus, and what online training is required of your faculty?
Well, just like I said before, we do have online, we call it Course Design Institute. It has 3 levels. The first level is more of a technology so that everybody knows how to operate, especially Blackboard. We have other video platforms that we include as well, but Blackboard is the main portion of that first level. Second level is instructional design and pedagogy. So now that you know how to operate Blackboard, how to operate Collaborate Ultra, Panopto, all those fancy things, what are you going to do with it when it comes to instructional design? And the third one is mentorship level. So after they graduated from the second one, we ask them to mentor another faculty. Just like Judy said, I do not want to be mentoring every single person in a college. I would like for it to be a shared responsibility with faculty or mentoring other faculty. So We do have mentorship level. So far, we have whole 2 mentors. We have criteria what it is to mentor. We require a statement of a mentor, and we require a statement of the mentee, just to make sure that it was beneficial and not just made up and blah blah blah. And we also have a Hall of Fame with our 2 mentors so far. So we try to expand that so that we are able to have a more robust training ability, even though we only have, it's not really only, but we have 6 people in our center, right? So we try to cover as much ground as possible. So that is the online portion. Unfortunately, it is not required. Unfortunately, I guess for me, it is not required. The provost office and the dean's offices are strongly encouraging faculty to take it, especially the second level. However, it's not required. So we did have very good turnout over the summer, but it wasn't because of the flex, because it was because of what was the expectation for the fall. And I don't know, I didn't know what I was doing in the spring. Let me just go and educate myself so that I know how to teach better in the fall. That was the main reason why we had so many faculty participating. But it's not required. It is well attended. I am trying right now, trying to figure out how to make it required for new faculty, for faculty that are new to us, period. It's in very initial stages of thinking and discussing. So hopefully I'll be able to make it happen. If not, it's going to be just fine. So we'll get through it even without anything required. So yes, we do not have anything required.
Yeah, I'm lucky on our campus. We have an online instructor orientation. We call them OIO. And people have to complete that before their names will go on the schedule. So that's our biggest leverage. And then that helps them get the online part of their course created. And then they also do technical training with the IT people in the room. So yeah, I like that. And we're fortunate that most of the people who teach HyFlex already teach online. So most of them have gone through this OIO already, and they're mostly focused on, Zoom and the microphones and the cameras and all that. So, but yeah, and I had great turnout over the summer for all sorts of faculty training here in Zoom. And I think some of it was faculty wanted to see each other again. So it became, it was partly social, but they did want to learn, especially that active learning, what can I do? How do the breakout rooms work and all that kind of thing, so that they could get more interaction and engagement going with their students. So I like that we have that training, and then we try to do that semi-mentorship thing. But Jeff or Monica, do you have I'm sorry, I was just reading this question from Todd. He says, are the mentors experienced faculty or ID staff, or both? On my campus, they're the experienced faculty. I'm the only ID staff. And so Todd's asking about so Tonka's saying faculty at Canton. Yeah, Monica or Jeff, do you want to chime in on any of this?
We don't have a lot of experience yet. In the past, since March, we have been doing a lot of work with faculty and remote learning. We did do what's called a Summer Institute, a very intense training over the summer, with about I would look to Dean. It was about 10 people, I think, in development and doing the remote, and how to combine Blackboard and Zoom or collaborate, or and we did work with mentors, and we are working with mentors who are mostly experienced online, as well as our one ID. So and we'll probably do that as we move forward as well.
We're looking at, we have mandatory training that is right now a drip feed, kind of 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 over this last semester as people are getting ready to teach asynchronous courses in the spring. But it is we also had just crazy numbers over the summer, obviously getting people ready. And I think that, there's just, I think where HyFlex would fit into our model is an addendum, an addition onto our current training, so that it would look very similar, but we talk more about presence and the technology required to maintain courses like that, and good design, and making sure that we're not designing a course and a half, as it's been called, that you're not making students do just more work to justify not being in the classroom, or going to the class and then not having the same amount of expectations. So going back to learning objectives and really redesigning the course for HyFlex. But yeah, the ideas have come around. I know there's a lot around student about recertification. We're looking at potential options for that for some of our faculty, because like Dean had pointed out, 2000 is maybe when some of them went through the initial training. And so there may be a reason to refresh at this point, but that's would probably go into that mentorship model. I think that's wonderful. I think we do best when faculty are helping each other grow, and it's like training ourselves out of a job, but it's also a really good way to make sure that there's good practices kind of throughout. So the conversations have come up at our CTL and different things where we really want to do training, but in an effective way. And like I said, we all have a universal touch point now that we can go back to and say, oh, look, we did this when, and we can do it again if necessary, and what students benefit from it. So it's kind of where we are.
Great. Yeah, and that just reminded me when we were talking about the 2000 discussion and how some of our faculty learned how to teach online then and haven't really, may not have attended a session that we know of since. But so we started implementing, we had first started with Quality Matters, and then we switched over to Oscar. So we kind of try to mandate those periodic course reviews. And now we also mandate the use of templates in the courses. So that helps a lot, because when you go to help them with their template, then you can kind of say, oh, by the way, this could be an issue. Did you know about this workshop? And kind of try to fold additional training into course updating. And the fourth question we have, I'm going to mix it up. Like, let's start with Jeff, and we'll go in backwards order and say, what are some lessons learned and challenges for developing in this modality?
See, I like having the time to think, though, Judy. It was the whole thing. I was doing this well. Oh, it's like getting into the discussion board late and be like, what's everybody else saying? Perfect. I'll say something. No, I think that what the challenges are is, again, looking at so critically at instructor presence. This is an area that is not, this is where, as an instructional designer, I'm most uncomfortable. I can make recommendations, but I can't tell you how to teach your class. That's never a realm that instructional designers want to be in. And I think with HyFlex, this is the most involved we could be in that space as instructional designers, because we're talking about communication methods, and we're talking about, not just the assessment, not just the activity building, not just the content, but really how are you doing what you do with students? So it's a far more intimate part of learning. And I think what's, as long as we frame it in that kind of UDL, we're just adding to what you already do so well, then we'll be in good shape. But I worry and I caution myself when I'm talking with my instructors, who's very seasoned. I mean, our seasoned online instructors just need like triage and postmortem. That's it. They don't want you anywhere else but the very beginning and the very end of the course. I've got the middle bit. If you want to come in and help me, those are the 2 times to check in, unless I have a problem. As an instructional designer, I feel like that, and as we are supporting faculty, it's trying to remind them how warm Tonka made me feel when she's talking about the cocoon. We are there to help and protect and support the faculty to be successful in teaching with the students, and also keeping in mind the students' experience, and that they feel supported as well, and they feel like they are part of a community. Another great thing that Brian brought up in the keynote is that this is supporting a learning community now. It's not in one place. It's a group of people that are connecting at their time and are able to learn in that environment, and in different ways, in different mediums. So That's kind of my biggest challenge. The second biggest challenge is the one that's pretty open and out there: money, time, talent, right? We need to spend the resources to get the technology to make this work. Though there are smaller ways, we have what Ryan described as we have our Cadillac rooms and we have our Kia rooms. And I've owned a lower grade car, so I understand that have smaller technology that the instructors can use to do a simulated HyFlex experience during this time. And that is a consideration as well. So, you know, the time element then becomes how do we design to make it so it's a good experience and a high quality experience. So, you know, there's a lot of considerations there, and we will only learn as we go through it. But I wouldn't be surprised if online learning looks a lot more like this in 5 years than it does the LMS only asynchronous model.
Monica, do you have any
No, we
lessons
have
learned
no, I love everything Jeff is saying. I think he's right on. I'm worried about all of that as we begin this process. But I also, as you've talked about active learning, and I know one of our faculty concerns on our campus is keeping the interaction, the active learning, the students engaged in the different modalities. So we're going to struggle, I think, a little with that. So I'm worried about that as well as everything else Jeff said, but I think I'm going to pick some of Jeff's brain after these conversations.
Yeah, I agree with everything Jeff said too. And you're getting a lot of great comments too, Jeff. People like your enthusiasm. And I think some of the challenges that I see too are the ideas. So this, like, we're all in the pandemic, right? And we're all trying to figure this out. And the students are too. And I think sometimes faculty expect the student to have it all going on when they show up in the room and they know, exactly what they need to do and when and how. And I do a lot of time helping people make sure that their course is student ready instead of the faculty always expecting the student to be college ready. And so we make sure that all the students registered for any Blackboard based course they start off right in an orientation for that. And we really spend a lot of time, like in our templates, making sure the students have everything spelled out for them, how to manage their technology, how to manage their time, and things like that. So, and I'm not saying the faculty aren't supportive of the student, but when the faculty member is trying to make sure the right camera is on and that, everyone can hear Joey in North Dakota as he's trying to talk to the group, you've got all these other things to manage that sometimes having to deal with the student tech issue and the student confusion just gets to be too much. So we work on, making sure we try to take the burden of getting the students ready off of the faculty and try to build it into the course or help the students get ready prior to the start of the course. But I don't know, I'm interested to see what Tonka is going to say to this one because she probably has a lot more lessons learned to share.
I think my number one lesson is to try to distress yourself because just like I said, at least 105 times today, it is new and it is not known to you. So of course you're going to be anxious. However, your main purpose is as a faculty is to teach your students. It is not to fiddle with technology. It is not to figure out whatever. It is to teach the students. So even if the technology is not working for you today, that's okay, because you know what? You have Flex course and the Flex course is ready for any scenario. You already prepared the course. So even if the technology is not working, that's fine. We had a faculty on the first day of Flex course. She was new to Flex course on the first day of the semester. the technology she practiced with, we have two platforms. So she chose one, she practiced with that one, and guess what? It wasn't working that day. So, and she decided to switch the platforms, and she was just fine. It was a little bit at the beginning, it was a little bit choppy because she was new to the technology, but she got through it because you are talking to humans as a human, right? You are not there to operate technology. This is not your main point. So the distressing part for faculty from instructional designers should come first, because it is the main reason why you're there is to educate, is not to be proficient in whatever it is that you're using that day in the classroom. So if your personality comes through, and it will, because you have been teaching for a while, so you know that you have good rapport with your students. So if the personality comes through, that's okay. If your technology is not 100% where it needs to be. And also, another thing I noticed with our flex courses is, even though we do prepare for 3 different scenarios for 3 different types of students, for synchronous online, asynchronous online, face-to-face, once the student chooses the modality, they're very likely to stay with it. So it is not as crazy flex as it might sound, because if I am a face-to-face type of learner, I will try to make it to the class for all my sections. And I noticed that, especially, I think Michelle yesterday said the same thing, that the core 3 students from her class come to class every time. The rest are online most of the time. I mean, of course, you will have fluctuations here and there, but human nature is, once you choose something and you like it, you're going to stick to it. So don't get too anxiety ridden, because it's not going to be as flexible, as crazy, circusy as it, somebody might paint it, because we are creatures of habit. So it is definitely new thing. It is definitely something that you have to prepare for. You cannot just appear and be a wonderful flex instructor. It's not going to happen. It takes a lot of time beforehand to think about all the scenarios, to think about all the ways how your objectives are going to be met in the course, and how the students are going to float between those. So it definitely takes time. I'm not saying it doesn't, but once you're done, and once you run it once or twice, you're good to go. So just as an instructional designer, to have that feeling transferred to your faculty that it's going to be fine. We prepared. We are prepared. We thought about it up front, and it's just nothing to it but to do it.
Yeah, so that just reminded me, Tonka, of, I try to go in when somebody is having that first day of class, their first time teaching HyFlex. I try to go to the room with them, so that, like, there's somebody there who's, they think knows what they're doing with all the equipment in the room. But and in one class in particular, the instructor couldn't get the PowerPoint to show correctly, how you presenter mode and all that. And before I could even open my mouth to say anything, one of the students just jumped right up and said, "Oh, here, let me show you, professor." And he just took over and did it. And he was like, "I'm good." I said, "Amy, you're in good hands with these people. You don't need me." So it's just funny that, Jeff was saying it takes a village, and sometimes, your students can be a good resource for you too, when you need help like that. But I see there's a question in the chat. I just saw a few minutes ago, scrolling back, from Margaret. It says, someone mentioned requiring the faculty to fill out a checklist before they teach a HyFlex course. Does anyone have a sample checklist? And she says, I've seen the Oscar checklist. Is that the best one? So I don't remember who said they used a checklist. Anybody? We use the Oscar rubric, and I have a sheet of best practices, what to do before a course starts, and what to do periodically throughout the course, and how to wrap a course up, that we made. But and I'd be happy to share any of that with Margaret, but I don't remember if anybody else had another checklist.
Just like you, Judy, we use Oscar rubric. We adopted the one, the one from SUNY a little bit and edited it and added points and, all the jazz. So we have SUNY Canton friendly, I guess, rubric that we use. And all of our courses that have online elements have to be reviewed using that rubric. So yes, we do that as well. And for the review purposes, our Flex courses have to be fully ready except for the live recordings, of course, or live sessions that are going to happen in a Flex course. So this is the requirement. Even though the course is Flex, it needs to be developed as if it was run online.
Good. And Jeff shared one in the chat from that Alex Pickett worked on.
It's phenomenal. It's more geared towards remote instruction, so more where we were for the response to the pandemic, but it is a wonderful place to start. We dabbled in creating a pre-course checklist based on kind of initiatives that were started, kind of a conversation with SUNY, and then we kind of took it locally and did some stuff. And response was really great. People like being able to check things off a list, especially if they're as easy as make sure your name's in your course. And then kind of working through some things is a really good, again, independence builder and confidence builder. I think that's really good, especially like the SUNY checklist I just shared. If it's got resources embedded and baked into it, it kind of, again, gets us out of a job very quickly. So I'm very cautious when I share it, only as need necessary. No, it is a phenomenal resource. Dean, I also saw a question from him, retention gains. For Finger Lakes, Dean, we heard some positive feedback from students. We have not been running it long enough to know the actual impact of retention. I personally think it is just a really solid next step in online education. I think it's where we're evolving to. So I think that is more my drive for it as an instructional designer, but from the institution perspective, it's still yet to be proven. Tonka might have more information than I would.
We have our Flex courses are mostly upper class courses where retention is not as huge of a problem as for those, on the freshman and on the freshman level. So from anecdotal research that we made, yes, there is no issue with the retention, but I'm also thinking if the course was run as a fully online or as an in-person, I'm thinking they will not be an issue with retention either in those courses, right? So we need a little bit more data. We need a little bit more, especially data from freshman years, just to see how that is going, because that is the biggest potential of Flex to change something is with freshmen, especially during the times that we are living right now. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, what we have right now, the retention is fine, but I'm also thinking that it would have been fine without Flex as well.
And we use Flex, you got me saying it, HyFlex more as something for completion, because we have our main campus and then 6 campus centers. And so for students to have to come who live, way at the far end of Wyoming County up to Batavia, it's like a 75-minute drive. And they're not going to drive up for their 55-minute class. So with this modality, the student can join the course from home or they can go to that nearest campus center and work there and be able to finish their program. And we see that a lot in one of our faculty presenters yesterday was in accounting. And so as an example, the program's not really big enough to offer multiple sections of some of their last semester courses. But so they were alternating. Every other spring, the course was online, and then the off springs, it was in Batavia. So if you were truly a remote student, you might have to wait a whole nother year cycle to get that last class to graduate. But now that Amy is doing it in HyFlex, she offers it, she'll be doing it every spring in HyFlex, and the students can stay on their regular, their original path and graduate on time and move on. So that was our motivator to start it, was because of the way our service area is so spread out. and the students just can't get to Batavia enough to finish a program. So do we have any other questions or comments? Or is it time for Jamie to wrap us up?
You guys have done a really great job of keeping up with the chat today and answering questions as they came up.
We're instructional designers. We're used to doing 7 or 8 things at once, so it's not.
Right. The multiple screens probably helps too. Right?
Yes.
Well, if that's all the questions, I do want to extend my thanks to Monica, Judy, Tonka, Jeff, of course, for sharing your experiences, your expertise, your insights, and your sense of humor. It was a good session today. I really appreciate making this seem approachable, and I appreciate the viewpoint of the people-centered creative approaches to looking at this from multiple angles. So, and to all of the attendees today and for the duration of the week, I want to thank you for giving us your time and attention. And we'll be sending out links for the recordings. All of the recordings are available on the registration website. But we'll also be sending out a satisfaction survey probably early next week. If you guys would feel free to participate in that, it'll take you a couple minutes. And I just wanted to bring you up to date with one little piece before we go today. There is a need apparently to have a new workplace group created for the HyFlex community. And we are going to have some people being administrators for that particular workplace or group, but it will allow people to ask questions about IT, about faculty development, about teaching practices, et cetera, all in one kind of localized place where we can have ongoing conversations, submit files, et cetera, and do some sharing there. And again, I'll remind you, we're going to do another couple of sessions in the spring that focus on HyFlex as it relates specifically to students. We weren't able to address that in this week because we wanted to have the keynote that left that one extra day for students later in the spring. So look for that announcement coming out of the CPD. And so on behalf of the CPD, I want to thank everybody. Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks a lot.